If you're balling on a budget just like I am, and you've been wondering how to keep costs down and at the same time get the most for your money, today's video is exactly what you need. Both Bernat Super Value and Red Heart Super Saver are budget friendly, but how do they compare? Today, I'm going to analyze several aspects that really kind of determine what it means to be a good yarn, just to see if one outshines the other. I am so glad you're here. If you're new to my channel, my name is Marty, and I am obsessed with all things crochet. Each and every week, I share what I've learned and even some things that I'm still in the process of learning. Today, it's all about balling on a budget, though, so let's hop in. So in order to do this comparison, I'm going to be keeping score. I'm going to be reviewing the Red Heart Super Saver in the color Light Periwinkle and the Bernat Super Value in the color of Lilac. Keep in mind that every color in each brand, it might produce like different scores, I guess you can say, for each one of the aspects that I'm going to talk about today. But because I am a chronic overthinker and just for the purposes of this video, I'm going to keep it stupid simple and only focus on these two colors. The first thing I want to talk about is cost per skein. Because let's be real, you can't just get this much yarn. You have to get this much yarn, right? You have to buy a whole skein or a ball or a hank or however it is that you purchase your yarn. And that costs money. So I want to talk about that because cost really is ultimately when you think about budget friendly, cost is really one of the most important. It's actually the first thing that you look at. Do I have enough to buy what I need, right? So I'm going to be quoting Amazon prices because although I will buy from other places, I have bought from other places like Yarnspirations. Amazon honestly is my main go-to for all of my yarn stash needs, or well, a good portion of it anyway. I really enjoy that I don't have to pay shipping. So taxes, well, the government's always going to get their share, right? It's inevitable. When I have a very short budget, I don't want to have to pay shipping on top of it, and I don't live anywhere close to a yarn store. So for me, Amazon works super, super well with Amazon Prime because I don't have to pay the shipping, which is good. And it gets to me, pretty straight away. I like that. I like that a lot. All right. So you can actually find Red Heart Super Saver skeins. When I did my research, I found them anywhere from $8 to $11 a skein. Keeping in mind too, I usually buy 3 packs because to me they seem more cost effective. So the skeins are anywhere from $8 to $11, but a 3 pack can be anywhere between $13 and $18. You split that into three, you're actually paying less per skein than if you bought them one skein at a time. So I keep that in mind too. But for the purposes of this video, again, trying to keep it stupid simple. I told you I overthink. Amazon carries the Red Heart Super Saver per skein anywhere between $8 to $11. Whereas the Bernat Super Value skeins are usually between $6 and $11. Now their 3 pack is generally a little bit more than the Red Heart, which I find really odd because per skein, it's a little bit less than Red Heart. I also found that color plays a big role in pricing as well. So if you have a specific color that you're looking for a project, do your diligence on Amazon or anywhere else because prices are also, especially at Amazon, prices are in large part determined by the seller that you're getting it from. So you might find the same skein in the same color at a better price all on Amazon. So just look around and do your search, do your diligence. So as far as cost per skein goes, I'm actually giving Bernat a 10. And Red Heart a 9. And that's because you can actually get per skein, not in the 3 packs, but one skein at a time. You can actually get Bernat for cheaper on a lot of on some of their super value yarn colors. You can get them for $6, whereas Red Heart, the bottom that I have found was $8. So I went ahead and gave Bernat a 10 and Red Heart a 9. Let's talk about how much you get for that skein, right? It's not enough to be low cost, in my opinion. And let me know below if you agree, but it's not just costing less, it's getting more for your money. So I wanted to go over the yards in each skein. Red Heart Super Saver, that stands tall at 364 yards for the skein, where Bernat, that's 440 yards for that skein. That's a huge 76-yard difference. You could create an entire project, albeit small, with 76 yards. Holy cow. Now, for that reason, in this particular aspect, I'm giving Bernat Super Value a score of 10 and Red Heart a score of 8, because that's a huge difference. I'm marking down my scores so that I can keep track of them for later. All right, so let's talk about the variety of colors. Again, for the purpose of this video, keeping it stupid simple, I'm actually just going based on the variety of colors that I found on Amazon. It's important from a cost perspective that you be able to find the colors that you need in the price point that you need them to be in. So having a wide range of colors is important to me. Not every project is the same. I found that Bernat had 72 or more options for colors on Amazon. Red Heart, on the other hand, was 82 or more. Now, the color options really do depend on the store that you're in, the size of your order. Like I mentioned earlier, I mainly buy on Amazon, but I've bought both from Yarnspirations. Matter of fact, I did a Yarnspirations yarn haul video that I will post up here. One more thing that I'm going to mention here is that neither Bernat nor Red Heart have dye lots, which is important because if you require, for whatever project that you're making, if you require more than one skein, you need to be aware of the dye lot because it can vary, right? You can have the same lilac color, but if it's a different dye lot, that lilac color might be a different hue. So matching it can get really kind of tricky. With no dye lot, they're all going to be pretty much the same. So don't worry about that. Honestly, I like that a lot, the no dye lots. But based on the variety of color options, I'm actually giving Bernat a 9 and a Red Heart actually gets a 10 this time. The next thing I want to talk about is thickness. Now, I debated for quite some time on how I could illustrate and show the thickness of each of the options. Finally, I decided it would probably be best if I made a little swatch of each, 10 single crochet by 10 rows. And on both of them, I used a 5.5 millimeter hook. I noticed a few things while I made these swatches, and I'm actually going to mention several of them later on in future aspects. But in regards to thickness, Red Heart honestly is clearly thicker than other. As you can see in this swatch comparison, now keep in mind they're both 10 stitches across and 10 rows deep. Oh, I feel silly. But you can see that Red Heart is the blue one. It's bigger. right? They both had a 5.5 millimeter hook. Same one, same hook for both of these. But as you can see, that is not nearly as thick as this one. And not only that, too, another thing that I noticed that not only is it bigger, there are generally spaces in between the stitches. I noticed that with this one, I mean, when you hold it up to the light, you can kind of see some definition. But this one, I mean, and I'm not trying to pull on it, but the holes between the stitches are bigger, which means the yarn is thinner on this. So because of that, I'm giving Red Heart a score of 10, while Bernat gets an 8. Now, there are pros and cons to thicker yarn versus thinner yarn, and it really comes down to the project that you're working on and your personal preference. I find it easier, and maybe it's because I'm still on the beginner side of crochet. I do still consider myself a beginner because I don't have the skills that an expert has. I'm still building my skills. I still find it easier to work with a thicker yarn, maybe not a size 6 or a 7 or a fluffy yarn. To be honest, I'm a little intimidated to use any of that. The next thing I want to review is ease of use. One of the things that I have a difficult time with is yarn splitting in the middle of a stitch. I don't know if you have ever experienced that. It is so fun. No. I found just while doing specifically these two swatches, I found that the Bernat, it split a lot. It was hard for me to do. It was not easy to use with a 5.5 millimeter hook, which really kind of surprised me. I expect that kind of thing with smaller hooks. I catch yarn and it splits when I'm using a smaller hook, especially a much smaller hook than what the yarn originally calls for. I kind of expect it to split, but with a 5.5 millimeter hook, I I found it very frustrating that the yarn kept splitting. All I was trying to do was make single crochets. For that very reason, I gave Red Heart a 10 because it didn't split at all. And I gave Bernat a 5. Yeah, it really bothered me. So the next thing I want to talk about is strength. I don't know if you have ever broken your yarn trying to tighten up a magic ring. Um, if you have, then you know and understand how important strength is when choosing a good yarn for projects. Again, it really does depend on the type of project that you're doing, and also your personal preference. I know there are several crocheters that they don't generally bother with scissors. They just break the yarn and move on. I personally don't like that. I would rather use my scissors. I don't like, no, I don't. Which is weird, honestly, because I have a habit of forgetting to sew in my ends. So in my goal of leaving a tail long enough for me to sew in, I forget to sew it in anyways. But that's neither here nor there. We're going to see how hard it is to do. I'm going to start with Red Heart, and because I'm a big girl, and I have in the past underestimated my own strength. So I'm just going to try to break them. Are you ready? I feel like I'm in a strongman contest or something. Okay, maybe not. But yeah, kind of. All right, so let's see. Can we break this? You ready? What? I don't know how I did this. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Oh my gosh. Okay, there we go. I broke it. Yay. But it took a lot of pressure. Took a lot of pressure to break that. There's that one. And let's try the Bernat Super Value. Here we go. Y'all ready? Oh, see if I can. All right. Ow, come on. Oh. All right, so this one did not break easily. It did stretch though, and I could feel it like in the creases where I'm trying to hold on to it. I don't know if you can see that dip. Um, I could feel it. I could feel it stretching a little bit, which could be good or not so good, but it's definitely strong. So in this aspect of good yarn, as far as the strength goes, I'm going to go ahead and give Bernat a 9 because it was stretchy. Red Heart on the other side is the complete opposite. It didn't really stretch much, but it also broke pretty easily as compared to the Bernat. So I scored it at a 4 rather than a 9. Softness. This is where I get to snuggle the yarn. Do you guys ever snuggle your yarn? I snuggle my yarn. I wonder I wonder if I could be a professional yarn snuggler. That would be awesome. As far as softness goes, you know, it's hard to say because I think they're both pretty soft. I like the feel of the Bernat more than I like the feel of Red Heart. Although they're both acrylic, so they're not gonna feel like cotton or bamboo or something like that. I feel like they could both be softer. I have felt acrylic yarns that are more soft than these, but I do think that the Bernat is a bit more soft than the Red Heart. Oh my goodness. I love being a yarn snuggler. I am going to go ahead and give Bernat an 8 and a Red Heart a 7 because I feel like both of them are they're pretty soft, but they're not as soft as other acrylic yarns that I have felt, and that includes mostly Red Heart. Other Red Heart colors I have felt much more soft than those. Consistency. Now, when I talk about consistency, I mean, is it the same thickness all the way through the skein? This is the one thing that I'm going to vary on. And when I say vary, I mean, I know I said I was going to keep it stupid simple for this video and only focus on those two colors. But the fact is, I haven't used a whole skein of either of those colors, but I have used a whole skein of Bernat Super Value in another color and of Red Heart in another color. What I will say is, what I have personally found is that they're both pretty consistent. With the exception of, it was Red Heart Super Saver, but it was the primary stripes. So it was red, yellow, green, blue, all with black. Awesome. Like, matter of fact, I'll show you. So it was this one. This right here. I was trying to, this is another one of my works in progress. Don't judge me. But what I found is that it changes depending on the color. Sometimes it's super thick and it makes it look like I increased where I wasn't supposed to, or it got really thin. In this particular case, it was the black that got super thin. I'm not going to count that because it's the only colorway. It's the only Red Heart anything. And it could have been a one-off. I just happened to get a bad batch. So I'm not going to count that. With that said, I'm actually going to give both Red Heart and Bernat a 10. on the consistency because, to be honest, I'm pretty impressed that it hasn't really changed for either brand. Stitch definition is another one. Stitch definition is pretty important because it creates a more finished, more professional looking product. This is where I'm going to bring my swatches back into view. The lilac stitch definition, and maybe it's because it's a thinner yarn, but it seems to be much more defined. It's shinier. I really just like the overall look of the lilac or the Bernat over the red heart. I'm not saying anything bad about my handy dandy trusty red heart super saver. I'm not trying to talk smack about them for real. But I do like the finished product of the Bernat Super Value much better. I like the stitch definition. I love how it looks when it's worked up. I think it's pretty. It's got a sheen to it, but not like super shiny, like anything like that. I just really think it is beautiful. So, because of that, I'm actually going to do a 10 for the Bernat, and I'm going to do an 8 for Red Heart. Okay, so the results kind of surprised me. Yes and no. It goes both ways. So when I started this video, I really expected Red Heart because it is my tried and true, okay? I expected it to outperform the Bernat. With that said, as I was going through each of the aspects and I was rating them individually instead of overall, I really started thinking that the Bernat was taking over the Red Heart. So I was like in shock a little bit while I was doing this video. Here's what I found. There was a total of 90 points. There were 9 aspects. There was a total of 90 points, 10 being the most that you could get, 1 being the least that you can get. It's a I don't like it and I'm totally digging it. I thought Bernat was leading. What I found was no. In fact, it was not. My tried and true actually won out with 77 out of 90 points. Bernat came close, though. It was 69 out of 90 points. So what does this tell me? This tells me that both of them are very good budget-friendly yarns, depending on what you're using them for. Okay? What in the world? I am going to be incorporating more of the Bernat Super Value because I do really like the finished product. The way the stitches look. I will probably be using that more with my amigurumi if I can get over the fact that the yarn splits. That's kind of a non-negotiable for me. I don't like that. So I'm going to have to play with that and see what happens. Don't forget to check out the links below. I did go ahead and include the links to both the Red Heart Super Value, Super Saver, Red Heart Super Saver, and Bernat Super Value. Flawsome. Absolutely flawsome. I do want to be completely transparent though. Those are affiliate links. So all that means is that if you do decide to buy something, that I am going to get a small commission out of it. I didn't add them because I get an affiliate commission. I added them because that's honestly where I buy my stuff. But I do want to be transparent in that I did apply for the affiliate program. I did get accepted into the affiliate program. So I will be getting a small commission off of that. Those little commissions just kind of help me do what I'm doing on YouTube. So in advance, I want to thank you for clicking on that link.